is Barry Axius, Voice of the Youth founder, community advocate, one of the brothers that are part of Brothers for Flow, which is something that me and my other three brothers felt that we needed to do to assemble the voices of brothers, just to make sure that one, our voices are heard, two, that our sister sees us, and three, that our community sees us and knows that we're taking this mayor race just as serious as a lot of our sisters. And we want to give a big round of applause for the sisters, all the sisters. That continue to hold us down in spaces, in places, and sometimes in situations where they don't always feel protected. At times, they always don't feel like we have their back. So intentionally, we wanted to make sure we showed our sister that we have her back.
Yeah.
And for the folks that are in here that came, for the folks that have not been able to come but are donating, continue. We had a goal of 5,000. But I'm gonna tell y'all, we about 1,000 close to getting that goal. So let's give a round of applause for that. So that means after you hear Flo get down and spit a spit, I like the fact her name is Flo because she be really flowing.
Facts.
We gonna probably get over 5,000 by the time you guys are hearing. And so when you guys see the campaign donations, you can log in. We got paperwork for y'all if y'all want to do the donations with cash. But we want to make sure that we're very intentional with giving our sister enough, not only with the audience and the voice, but the monies and the support that she's going to need. She's going to break down the things that she's going to need. So I'm just saying, I'm one part of the vessel. We're going to give it to my brother Rashid.
All right, y'all. Hey, Rashid Sadiq here, and brother. All right. Hey, this is beautiful. And we got all these brothers. I know some of y'all haven't seen each other face to face in a long time. So let's try to make this. But we got to make sure we stay connected. But it's real important that we protect our sister Flo through this process. As we know, politics can be very brutal, right? We want to make sure that they know when they come for her, they're going to come for us.
Yeah.
All right? And this is really about us standing up for her. And this is going to continue after she wins, right? All right? Right? We're going to be here. And so we actually chose this day because this is actually her father's birthday. And her father has since passed. And so this is, we want to lift up her dad for creating such a beautiful daughter. So happy birthday to Mr. Carter, right? So we have 24 days to election.
Yeah.
We're going to have signs like you got here to go put in your yard and or in your neighbor's yard or whoever that you feel like needs to have it, right? Because we got to make sure we bring not only ourselves, but we bring 10 people to the polls with us,
Fact.
right? All right?
Fact.
Can we do that?
Yes, sir.
All right. I ain't here. Can we do that?
Yeah.
All right.
That means take your 18-year-old
Yeah.
off the end and bring them to the poll.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yes. So we got to, with our forum tonight, we're going to have Mr. D'Angelo right here is going to ask questions, and we want everybody to get to know Flo, right? Like we know. Because I've been knowing her for about, well, I ain't going to say. I've been knowing her for a while, and we've been out here fighting for a long time. And I'm so happy to see that she's here representing our city because she has it. She has it. We just got to make sure everybody knows she has it. And so it's about us spreading the word, right? And make sure that we talk to them other neighbors that may not look like us, and we make sure they understand what she's about. That's right. All right? So I'm challenging all you guys to go reach out to somebody that doesn't look like you. All right? And so we're going to get everybody to show up at the polls. All right? Dr. Flo, we love you. Come on up. This girl been working, y'all. This girl been working hard. She had 5 meetings today.
Come on.
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. How y'all doing?
Look good too. Man, sound good, look good. This is our opportunity to take some time to know the candidate. How many of you guys have no show of hands, Dr. Flo, before you came in? So I ain't got to do a lot of work. We ain't got to do a lot of pretension, right? We ain't got to do a lot of the politic talk. We want to have a conversation with Flo tonight about who she is, right? It's one of my duties is to connect the professional and the personal. I believe that some of our work environments are suffering because we're asked to come and be one part of ourselves, right? Come and be professional. We want to extract what's in your mind and go home. But tonight we're going to talk about professional and personal. And I call myself a Flo super friend fan. Super friend fan. Try to say that. Super friend fan. I've known Flo for a very, very long time. And so this time that we're going to have with Flo is near and dear to my heart because I have spent intimate time with Flo. I know her work ethic. I know her mental capacity. I know how she loves this city. And I want y'all to know that, right? From a personal point. So she don't know the questions I'm going to ask, but we're going to get into it. Is that all right? Yeah. Well, there's a mic here for you.
And fam, if y'all need to go get up to get drinks and water, feel free and eat. I know that food's hella good, so I ain't.
All right. So before we get started, I just want to encourage folks. There are flyers at your table. If you can scan the QR code that registers you for this event, they often say that Black men don't show up. Right? It's often that we're not in the
Say that
number.
one more time.
They often say Black men don't show up, but this room is contrary to that belief, right? And so if you could, it ain't gonna take your money. Just scan the QR code, and that registers you to say that you were here in this number. This is a historical time, right? All right, so let's get started. Hi, Flo.
Hi, D'Angelo.
Should I introduce myself? Is that
I mean, you
I'm D'Angelo Mack, super fan. Y'all know. I'm glad we're able to have this conversation. I really have been thinking about sitting down and talking with you. I feel like one of the privileged ones that has your number and is capable of sitting down and talking to you whenever you're free, but your free time is tremendously limited. You might be the business.
I try to text back, y'all. I mean, yeah, y'all know I try to text back.
So I want to start with the beauty of the day, right? When Barry called Ryan, Brother Sadiq, and myself to do this, he made mention, and then I recalled that this was the day your pops passed, right? So not his birthday, but his passing day, right? And so there's some significance for brothers to be in this room today, right? I know your relationship with your pops and how much you love him. You know I'm a Cancer. I'm gonna do my best to not.
You're not going to try too hard.
No, you're gonna cry today. I want you to talk to us about your dad and what he meant to you. And I know Miss Gail, your mom, very well, and I know what she's instilled in you. You can see it, right? When you see Miss Gail, I can see you and the things that are from her. But I of course, didn't get a chance to meet your dad. So if we can bring him into this room with these beautiful men, talk a little bit about your dad and what he's meant to your life, how he's helped you get.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for being here on this day with me. And I said earlier today, I started to talk about my dad at the Observer Forum. It was a disinformation forum. And I started to feel myself get emotional. I was like, we got to save the emotions before 4 o'clock. So I've been saving the emotions all day for all of you. When Barry reached out, he said, well, here are some dates. And I was like, it would be really nice to do it on October 12th because it always has this asterisk on it for me, right? It's this complicated day for me because It's the day I lost one of my favorite humans. And today is 30 years. And so, it's hard because my dad and I had so much in common. He was, my mom and I are very close. My dad was a lot more like me in many ways. And he indulged all of my ridiculousness. So my dad was a 6'4" big black man who would go out of the house with me when I wanted to, part his hair and put barrettes in it. And he would proudly go to the store with me holding his hand with 6 little pink barrettes in his hair. And he would dare you to say something to him about the fact that he was wearing these barrettes. And this was, late 80s, early 90s, right? We weren't, embracing as much of this as we were then. But my dad he was one of these people who really believed in speaking out for people who people often overlooked. And so he coached girls basketball because he thought it was important that men championed girls and their desire to be in sports. And so did his best friend, and this tells you the competitiveness of my dad and my Uncle Vince. About 6 months ago, my Uncle Vince prints out and sends me this article of the time that my Uncle Vince's girls basketball team beat my dad's girls basketball team. 1991. I was like, you went to the archives and then pulled up the highlights. Right? Like he was so proud to be able to rub this in his face, like all these years later. But that's the man who raised me. When my mom and my dad got married, my mom had started some graduate work and she was thinking about not finishing. And my dad's comment to my mom was, I don't want anybody to ever say you got married and it derailed you from your dream. I want this to be, and that's who my dad was. He was the type of person who, if somebody was picking on me, he would go tell me, he would build me up and then he'd be like, all right, this is what we're gonna say back to him, right? He had the energy of a warrior, but he was so gentle spirited at the same time. And the way that he poured into my life was really special. And I think that there is sometimes, a coincidence to how things work, because when I was born, my dad had just gotten laid off. And so for the first 2 years, I was at home with my dad, while my mom, took time off and then went back to work. And then my dad returned to teaching after that. But it meant that he and I got this really special time that a lot of men don't get with their newborns and toddlers, which is just the time for us to play, the time for us to be together. And I'm grateful for it because we only got, almost 12 years together. And I think when I think about him, I think sometimes about the conversations I wish we could have. That's one of the challenges with grief, is that throughout this process, I still wanted to call my dad and just say, I wonder what he thinks about this, right? I wonder what he thinks about my life. I wonder what he would say. And it's been so nice to reconnect with my uncles and my aunts and have some of these conversations by proxy. What do you think my dad would say about this? Because I knew him as a child, but now, I'm a middle-aged woman wondering what kind of conversations I would have if my dad were still alive today. And so it's also really helpful that so many of you have been in my life, because I get glimpses into the man of my dad, not the dad of my dad, right? And so when I talk to you and you tell me how you think about things, or when I'm riding around with Matthew, who's been the best driver I could have, and I told him earlier, I was like, you remind me a lot of my dad. And he's, telling me different things, and I'm like, oh, this is so nice. And when I'm talking to Jeff, and Jeff is like, oh, this is what we're gonna do, and this is how, I'm like, so many of you embody qualities that my dad had, and that feel very special, because I feel like I get a chance also to experience Black manhood in a way that I didn't get to, because he died before I got out of that egocentric part where you just think about yourself. Like, I didn't realize my parents had a relationship. Like, they're my parents, right? They exist to serve me. That's all you're thinking about at that age, right? And so now I'm going back and reliving the fact that my mom lost her life partner of almost 20 years, and I'm going back and recognizing, like, these were people, these were adults just like me, and all of you have been a part of that. So I just thank you for the ways, subtle and profound, that you've shown up in my life, and the meaning that it has for me as someone who lost my dad so unexpectedly.
Thank you for that. Yeah, you lost your dad at an early age, before you were 12, right?
Yeah, before my 12th.
Yeah, it just strikes me that you had him for 11 years, little over 11 years, and he was able to pour in what he was able to pour in. And that really does, for me, speak to the power of men in their children's lives, right? I'm sure we have fathers in the room, that understand the importance, but to be surrounded by good men, which I believe this room is, provides such a wealth of greatness, right? You mentioned some of the men in the room today and what they've done for you, and that's honestly why we're here, right? We want to continue to pour into you as a sister, as a daughter, right? I also know that we live in a time where the patriarchy is real, right? And you are on the campaign trail. Your opponent, is a black man. I love the way you bring that up often. Is a black man. Y'all didn't know that, did you? And there is just this, at times in community, this understanding of place, right? Women have a place, right? And you're taking on a pretty hard job as a black woman, as a woman first, and then as a black woman in these times. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've encountered, what you've seen, and how you persevered so far through some of these things?
Yeah, people say running for office is not for the faint of heart, and it certainly isn't. In ways that I was aware of, and also in ways that I hadn't really thought about. Some of the ways that I hadn't thought about is the way in which your story no longer becomes your own, right? So you get to tell your own story, even in sort of other high profile spaces, you get to tell your story. But now my story belongs to the masses, to retell, sometimes in ways that feel unfamiliar to me. And I think, and the ways that feel the most unfamiliar are the ones that are not rooted in love. Because if you really know me, even when I'm upset with you, it's disappointment or frustration because I want better. Because I believe in the possibility, and because I am an incredibly optimistic person. And so to hear people describe me as angry and vengeful and wanting to harm systems and wanting to make things worse is hard to hear, because more than other lies about policy and things like that, it's when people characterize my intentions that feel the most like, wow, you really don't, you've missed a core part of who I am and what makes me tick. And a lot of that is rooted in, race and gender, right? Calling me angry says certain things. Calling me radical says certain things. Calling me extreme says certain things. Even the conversation about experience, it says certain things, right? And I think what really shows up for me in this moment of challenge is how I'm a transparent person. How much we reward mediocrity. So we define experience as having shown up and nothing else. The only qualification to be an elected official is longevity, is time that passes, even if you don't put in work, even if you don't have a vision, even if it's not, you were a placeholder and things aren't better than they would have been if anybody had been there doing this job. Like, even if you weren't adding the value to it that you could have, even if you shut up at times where you should have spoken and didn't push an agenda forward. But that's the standard. And so now, because that's the standard, we all have to judge ourselves by a faulty yardstick, right? Now I have to explain to you why I have experience compared to someone who doesn't have much to show for, an entire generation of having been in spaces. And so I think that's the most frustrating part about it is not only do you have to come and describe and tell your story, but you also have to show how you measure up to a faulty yardstick. And that is the patriarchy, right? Like that is the oppression, that is the sexism, that is all of those things wrapped up into one. It's the same reason why people will send me emails and say, I love everything you had to say, but your earrings. And I'm like, I'm sorry, do the earrings pass policy? Did my brain turn off when I put it? It's too heavy. You're worried literally that it's gonna there's some mechanical thing here that doesn't work, right? I'm wearing these earrings specifically because we are in a city that is majority people of color. And every one of our cultures wears big, bright, beautiful earrings and adornment. And I want people to be reminded that your brain doesn't turn off just because you show up as your full authentic self. Like, the more we make the yardstick just who's been there before, the more we are tethered to what we've always had. If the yardstick is we imagine Mayor to be a white man, then everybody who's not has to justify why they deserve to be there, even though they're not what the yardstick is. And I'm saying the yardstick is broken and that there's a lot more people in this community who could do this work. I'm saying, quite frankly, I'm not that special. I think there's a lot of people in Sacramento who could be doing this work, but we don't give them the opportunity because the path to success is narrow and the path to falling off that path is wide. I'm saying that, every one of my accomplishments is the result of people pouring into me and me having more protective factors than risk factors, right? My dad passes away, but I go to a public school that has individual and group grief counseling. But there are policies in place. I mean, my mom can still afford to own our home, so I don't lose the only house and community I've ever known. But I have people in my life who loved and cared about me, who made sure I was okay. All of those things happen in the aftermath, right? And all of those are protective factors that help to mitigate this harm. And so I think about all the people who had lost and didn't get all those other things. And so it was compounded by, and then we had to move. And so I lost my friends and family. And then we had, and then we had, and then we had. And so now you're trying to survive and you don't get to dream. Now there are so many other people, I think, in our community who are really quite talented, who can do some of the things that I've been afforded the opportunity to do. And I'm drinking deeply from wells I did not dig. And so I'm grateful for the role that I've been able to play, but I'm also very clear that this is about us because it's not, I'm playing a role and I'm appreciative of the way that you all have supported me in playing this role, but it's also about us. And it's also about making sure that path to success is so much wider and that we don't anchor ourselves to a system that somebody made up. Let's be real about that. All of this is made up. Okay?
I was going to go there. I was going to ask you about that.
I mean,
can you expound on
that?
What
I was purple brain.
Yes. I was there. Can you expound on that concept?
So, we get so caught up sometimes in how things currently are that we don't even pause to imagine that it could be different. But every single thing that we interact with every day was somebody's once untested idea. And I love evidence and data as much as the next person. But sometimes there is no evidence or data. You just have to move because what's working right now isn't, and you have a good idea and it deserves to be tested. And it is no better or worse than the idea that we're currently living in because we are living in somebody's idea. And so it's sometimes very frustrating to exist in a world where people are so tethered to what is that they can't even imagine a world where you can be okay and have enough money to retire and all of those things, and everybody around you can also afford to be here too. We don't even entertain the option that you don't have to lose in order for me to win. And so I find myself frequently just confounded in some ways by the conversations that I have where people who have the most in our society turn to me and look with trepidation in their faces about what's going to happen if we actually care for the people who are sleeping on our street. And I'm like, I think you'll be fine, bro. Like I'm pretty sure this is not going to break you. So part of it is that we have to have a capacity to dream. Give ourselves permission to dream. And that's what so many of you in this room have done over the last 18 months is, we always talk about keeping it real as this way of offering critical feedback. And goodness knows that is important. Like the things that go unsaid because we're afraid to say them are way too many. But the other side of keeping it real is also the vulnerability to be able to say, there's something I want that I don't have right now, and I want to make it happen. And that is the thing that's been fueling me for the last 18 months is the number of people who are coming to me, talking to me about the Sacramento they want to live in and the power that we have to make that happen. And wanting to figure out how we can all be a part of it and how we can break down some of the silos so we don't have 5 Juneteenth events on the same day because we ain't talking to each other.
Come on, talk about it.
So, so that we can actually rally together and believe that we can get a reparations package over the finish line.
Come on.
So that we can rally together and say, look, we want to reimagine public safety, and is it now the time? Because you got nobody in the academy, 115 vacancies, and a $77 million deficit. Isn't this the moment that we think about maybe doing things differently? Because we've given the police $100 million more over the last 4 years, and nothing has gotten better. So maybe it's not just the money. Is this the time now where we say to ourselves, we're spending $1 million per person every year, forever, cycling about 300 people in and out of our emergency rooms, our jails, and our 911 calls. And they are no close to being housed, and they are no close to being cared for. And we've just resigned ourselves to this $1 million expense, the most expensive systems we have, getting a nothing outcome other than brief stabilization from an emergency. And what would it look like if we could actually spend way less money and get people into long-term care? What would it look like if we actually accepted that some of the people on our street are very reminiscent, and I was hoping my cousins were going to be here by now, but maybe they aren't, of my little cousin, Ade, who was born 17 years ago with cerebral palsy. And my family has known from the time he was born that we have to have a long-term care plan for him because he's going to outlive his parents and he's not going to be able to live independently. And the difference between Ade and some of the people I see on the street sometimes are that Ade's diagnosis happened at birth and their diagnosis happened at 24 when the schizophrenia sets in. And then when they started trying to, use substances to be able to medicate it. Or the executive functioning challenges that were never diagnosed in school now are showing up and you can't manage your activities of daily living. And so we kid ourselves when we see some of the people who are struggling and need our care, and we pretend as if one day they are going to magically wake up and pull themselves up by their bootstraps and get it together and get a job, and they're taking from the working people every day when they don't. Some of the folks on our street need our help. And when we overlook them or when we delude ourselves, we put ourselves in a worse position to help them. And so I think about these things and I think about how all of these systems are made up. And so why do we keep choosing a reality that isn't working for us when it's all made up? Let's make up something new. Any of it, all of it. Let's make it up.
I love that. Let's give it up. Nuggets. Some straight nuggets. As you were talking, I know you mentioned how optimistic you are. I love the concept that all these things are made up, and we live in this reality. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I just read something the other day that said your opponent had raised over $1 million from PACs and corporations and whatnot. And you've actually chosen to do this campaign in a more is possible, people-powered type of movement. Can you talk a little bit about why you decided not to take these corporate dollars and these different PACs money? Just talk a little bit about the reasons behind it.
Well, the first one is quite simple. That my ancestors' wildest dreams are not for me to be bought and sold.
That's right. All right, let's go home. We're all voting for you. So we'll tell our friends and our ancestors.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just that simple. But I mean, building on that, it's also that when certain people offer money, it comes with strings. It comes with compromising your values and compromising your position. It comes with, here's the money from the apartment association, but how do you feel about rent control? It comes with, here's the money from the realtors, but how do you feel about vacancy tax? It comes with, here's the money from, but how do you feel about, right? And now all of a sudden, you have somebody else's voice in your head, out shouting your conscience. Come on. Telling you that, this is on your leg and tell you it's raining. And you're like, but maybe this is right. Like, you start twisting yourself into a pretzel to justify the talking point because you want the money and because you feel like you need the money because that's the only way to accomplish anything. Right. And so it mattered a lot to me to be able to have a level of independence to say no. It mattered a lot to me to also be able to hear a louder voice of the people being impacted by the systems and the people being benefited by them. The people who, we always say systems are perfectly designed to get the outcomes they do. And so that means that there's somebody making money off of your oppression. There's somebody making money off of the fact that that housing isn't a human right. There's somebody making money off of fill in the blank thing. And those people are now the ones who are lining up to oppose our agenda because they feel like their pockets are going to get lighter, right? And so it's important for us to be able to hold firm. But it also, I'm not a person who does things lightly. And so we've been living in Sacramento. We've been watching. There's a movement building happening here. And what I look at is, even back in 2016, Sacramento voted for Bernie Sanders for president. Nobody talked about it because he didn't win California, right? But like Sacramento did, the city. And sometimes we forget because it's very confusing to have a city and a county and a city and another county that are all kind of named Sacramento. And so we conflate what this region is, but the city of Sacramento has been signaling for a while that it wants something else. And so, part of the strategy of running for mayor was that we need to coalesce some power across the city and have something to unite around. Because there's a lot of people here who are frustrated with things always being done this way. And so there's many of you all in this room who, because you have your ear to the ground, weren't surprised by the outcome of the primary. But there's a lot of folks who were like, wait, what? What do you mean flows in first? And we're waiting to see politicians not get to run against us, right? We didn't see that coming. And they didn't see it coming because they haven't been paying attention. Because they've been listening to, and no offense, because I know some of us in the room have been there, but they've been listening to the Tower Bridge Brigade. Half of them don't even live in the city of Sacramento. And haven't been out having the conversations, haven't been on the ground listening and paying attention and seeing what's happening in communities all around. Seeing that the Hmong community has been really organizing itself and having conversations since George Floyd died about the importance of, building political power and solidarity, about the fact that our Latino community is having conversations in Spanish and saying, there's a way that this isn't working for us and we got to do better. They're not paying attention to the ways that, because Sacramento doesn't have just single ethnicity communities, that everybody in this room, I said this to the group on Wednesday morning, I said, everybody in this room has friends that don't look like people in this room. Good friends. If something happened to you today and this was your funeral, it would look like your friend group. And so that's what we've been building power with. Something unique and interesting has been happening in Sacramento. And so we're not in this place where people don't want nice things. We're in this place where we have the ability when we are given the option. But so many people are told that there is no option or pathway for them unless they do certain things. And part of this campaign is the ability to prove to people that there's a lot of folks out here who want to run without corporate money. And the proof is in the pudding. Like, let's show them you can. And honestly what people are afraid of is that they're lining up with big money because if we win this campaign without their money, now nobody has to go and kiss the ring.
Come on.
And what does that do to the whole region if people now realize there's a path where you don't have to kiss the ring? And so it's a risk, right? You know, but high risk, high reward, right? If we don't do it, then we don't see that it can be done. And so there's a part of me, you know, that this is how I talk, but there's a part of me where my leg is shaking, like, y'all, there's 24 days left. There's a lot on the line. And, you know, we want to win, right? We are wrong, and we want to win. And so because we know the power of what it can do for all of us. And we know the power of what it can do for the next generation of folks who are watching this and thinking, maybe I want to run, but I'm not, right? But my earrings are too big. But is true, and to not have to go that route. And I think that's important. And I think it's power shifting. And that's why I'm so grateful to have all of you on this journey with me.
That's remarkable. That's remarkable. And you're going to win. And you've already won. Because even in this room, you're sparking some things in people's minds about what they can do, right? We've been pigeonholed and fighting each other for so long, for the crumbs from the master's table, right? And this beautiful sister said, what if we don't have to kiss the ring? What if we don't, because the ring is made up. What if we don't have to kiss the ring? The thinking for me is what has always sold me, right? You often hear me talk about you being an alien and not of this world. Pastor would say that's a good thing, right? We are not of this world. And I think about you. I think about you on the trail. I think about you thinking about others. You just mentioned that you are in all of the communities. I see you. I see you. No matter creed, color, ethnicity, race, gender, you are with the people. This is truly a people power campaign. One of the things I was thinking with my beautiful partner last night, shout out to Dr.
Shout out to Connie.
Shout out to
$1 million buzz.
What I was thinking with her was like, when we were younger, we could run, right? Our bodies could do everything for us, and then we could treat, them bad and still wake up in the morning and do it again, right? When you get older, you have to.
You still can do it.
Yes, you can. You definitely can still do it, but you have to be more strategic about it.
You just gotta stretch first.
You got to stretch first, and you have to stretch your mental capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Your mind has to be stronger than your physical as we age, right? Because we know that this is a dying vessel that we're living in,
right,
and it's deteriorating, right? And I see you moving to and fro and with the people and helping the people. I think it's an important question for folks to know, like, our mayor needs to have some type of, ability to be strong enough to carry the shit that comes with Sacramento. Mm-hmm. And I know you. That's the beauty of it. I know your work ethic. I know, you wake up early to get to the gym and start your day. I know you have, on your phone an alarm that tells you when to go to sleep and all that. I want you to talk to us about what, your mental fortitude is like and what you've done over the years to just keep yourself in great self-care. I think that looking across the room, there's a lot of brothers in here that have worked ourselves into blood, sweat, and tears over the years, right? I got some older brothers who I know, my brothers here, who have held it up for so long and given the baton up, but they are tired, right? We have overworked and we have been underpaid for so long. But you're trying to do something different. Mm-hmm. And it starts by who you are and what you do to prepare for your mental. So just talk a little bit so people know what our next mayor is doing to take care of it herself.
Yes, and I will say that we live in a different time now because most of you have asked me how I'm doing and what I'm doing to take care of myself, and I don't think that was the case for people who were endeavoring on big things before. I think we have a much better understanding, at least in this community, of what it means. And so people, before they ask me about the campaign, they're like, how are you doing? You taking care of yourself? Are you did it? And I really appreciate it because you all are the accountability club that I need. But yes, it is important that we take care of our mental health. And so I have been, I was laughing because I was looking at a couple of you and I was like, yeah, that nighttime alarm, I'm often with some of you when it goes off and then I snooze it. So I'm sure you've been with me somewhere. I was looking at Jim because I think I was at his house drinking Cab Franc and one night with Charlie and Leandra, and the alarm went off, and I was like, I'm just gonna snooze that and continue drinking my glass. So if you're with me and it goes off, don't judge me. I try. It's just to make me mindful. But no, I do. I try to be mindful of the fact that I need sleep. And so that means I have to get to bed at a certain time if I need to get up the next morning. I schedule my workouts because they charge me $12 if I schedule and I don't cancel within 8 hours. Jose knows. Shout out to Orange Theory. Accountability thing where like if I signed up and I didn't cancel by, that means I gotta go because I did not pay them $12 over my basic price. Just not gonna happen. And so those are some of the things that I do because we make a lot of decisions every day. And now I am recognizing, I'm gonna look at Dr. Porter for a moment here, the pastoral role that I have taken on that I hadn't fully appreciated in mayor, right? People come and they lay their burdens at your feet. And sometimes you have to just sit with them. And the day that really reminded me of this was there was the homelessness summit that was held downtown. And I came outside and there was a Black man in his like late 30s and who had been experiencing homelessness for a couple of weeks. And I asked him how he was doing. And, when I've been talking, he just broke down in tears. And he was just like, I don't want to be here. Like I really want to kill myself. I just don't want to be here. And he just started weeping. And you could just tell he was a veteran. He was a person who was not accustomed to having this experience, but we connected. And so he started crying. And in that moment, we were able to find some people to provide some ongoing care and connect him. But in that moment, that wasn't what I was there for. I was there just to be present with him, to acknowledge his pain and to be in the moment. And so we stood there and cried for a moment. And then I had to pivot to go do something else and realize that I needed to hold that. And also I needed to set that down, right? I needed to have had that moment and also to carry it with me, but not carry it on me for the rest of the day. And I think a lot of that has come from having to learn the ways that I had to let things go. Having been in spaces where I've had to care for my family members and where a lot of just really traumatic things happened, and realizing that I had to take time away, that it was okay not to be okay, and what I needed on an ongoing basis to make sure I could stay okay. And so that's part of the reason why I really wanted this campaign to go joyful, because I know that's something that we need. It's one of the reasons why we really prioritize, like, people power does a whole lot, right? It's very easy to sit in a room, dial a bunch of people, raise some money, and then mail a bunch of mailers to people. But that's also not pleasing to our soul. So when we're having these, we had 89 house parties over the last year and a half. And when we're having them in rooms like this, where people are coming together, we're connecting. We're feeling whole. We're building each other up. It's powerful. It's energizing. When we're out, door knocking, we're reminding ourselves of our why, and we're also learning things along the way. And so for me, that's all part of the mental health part of it, is like being connected to people, being reminded that we need each other. That's why, we all saw Castaway. That's why Wilson was created out of the ball, because we're not meant to be alone, and we need somebody to talk to, somebody to connect to. And so the connections in our community are part of what builds me up, especially because I am an extrovert, so I need your energy. But also the downtime and the rest, and really making my home the Floasis where I can retreat and, and put my feet up and watch my favorite fictional president, President Bartman, on the West Wing, and, just kind of enjoy a moment, rewatch episodes of The Golden Girls, and just like really have a moment to myself of peace and not be on. And also recognizing sometimes that I consented to stepping into a role that is now public facing, and it comes with a lot of joy of interacting with people. But also sometimes I don't want to talk about my homelessness policy while I'm trying to pick out toilet paper. And that's what delivery services are for. Right? So so now when I go outside with the consent of I am in public. And when I can't people and can't public, I will call one of you and be like, can you pick me up some toilet paper because I'm out? Thank you. Right? Or a delivery service. So literally, that's not, and that's okay, right? It's a shift, and it's acknowledging when the world around you changes that you have to change with it. And it's something that Ken Hardy has said a lot, which is having to update your sense of self. And so part of this mental journey for me is updating my sense of self, because y'all, I've never had people take time out to spend tens of thousands of dollars mailing my name and picture out to people. Like, that is weird. Like, and I have to remind myself that I am not some 17-year-old girl who just graduated from high school and is on her way to Spelman anymore. Like, I gotta update the sense of self. Because they put, I mean, it's a cute picture. Can we just at least you got my good side.
To the photographer.
Shout out to the photographer. That's why that media page, if you're ever thinking about running that media page, is important, because those are the pictures they pull. So, on one hand, it was like I really had to sit there. I sat on my couch and I looked at it and I was like, people got together in a room, picked out photos, laid this out, and decided to mail my name. My bonus name is nowhere on it. Mail my name out to thousands of people. Like, you gotta do a little, like, you have to do a hard reset at that moment, right? And be like, all right, we're not in Kansas anymore.
That's right.
And by Kansas, I mean the Sacramento of yesterday. People did not mail my picture out to thousands of people, right? Like, that is wild. And so it does something to your sense of self and your sense of being around it. It's not about changing you, but it is about remembering that if you start hulking out at the Hulk size, it's dangerous and it destroys cities. If you start hulking out as a toddler, it's a little bit annoying, right? And so if you've grown to, if your reach is now bigger, you have to be mindful of your movements, because they don't have the same impact. And I think that's part of what the need for a time away and that mental reset does. And then also just being able to be honest about, like, sometimes it's not okay. Some days are harder than others. Some moments feel more personal than others.
Right.
And having a place to, again, also acknowledge that, be real with it, and then also lay that down. And be reminded of who I am, and having a mirror of so many people around me who remind me of who I am and who I know will tell me the truth and will tether me to reality is really helpful.
Let's give it a. So the goal of this time with you, Flo, was to humanize you, which is not, hard to do. But get folks to understand that we have a real, true mayor coming with the city, the people of the city, because the city don't make the people make the city.
That's right. That's right.
So a mindset for the people, the connectivity. Connection is a bad word in today's society, right? We're so divided. We're this and that, and you are here to truly connect people. You care for the elite as well as those who are, not so elite. And so I am very privileged. We are all honored that you have spent some time with us today. I want to give you the final words, anything you want to say to the people before we take just a couple questions.
Well, firstly, thank you for spending these minutes with me today, and in the ways, for those of you who have known me, you've spent them before, and for those of you who haven't, who I hope we have the privilege of spending them in the future, because it really does. The connection and the life stories really mean a lot to me. I'm grateful to my friends who come up from out of town, my family, I think, who's over there, my cousin, and so just really grateful to be in this space with all of you having taken the time to be here. For me, this work, as I mentioned, is personal. And especially on a day like today, I think the thing that I that I always remember about the night my dad passed is that I feel no regret about that night because in the moment, every possible good thing could have happened. Like when he collapsed at the restaurant, there was an EMT literally sitting at the very next table who immediately jumped up and started doing CPR. I had just gone through my Girl Scouts emergency training, and so while the adults in the room were freaking out, I ran and called 911. The ambulance came and they tried, like really everybody did the best. And I guess that really matters to me because, some of what I think about when it comes to public safety is the people who don't get the benefit of that in the aftermath of the tragedy, right? I think about, the 10-year-old girl who many of us saw handcuffed because the police came to her house. And literally last year when that happened in June and that video was shown, all I kept thinking was, who would have made losing my dad worse? Is if instead of an ambulance showing up, somebody showed up and started handcuffing my uncle, right? And started like if somebody had shown up and not been in the right mode to make sure everything possible happened. And so for me, when I think about the systems design, I think about people like me at 11 who called 911 for care and making sure that call turns out as best as possible, because if not, you carry that with you for the rest of your life. And so I really deeply in my soul understand the way that systems and policies are life and death decisions. And I want to make them with the full weight of understanding how they impact me. And so, on a day like today, I'm grateful for the people who have poured into my life and inspired me and encouraged me. And I'm also grateful to be on this journey with you. I'm grateful that you are ridiculous enough to have done this with me, because that we're all now co-conspirators in this work. So, welcome to Looney Tunes, and in the best of ways, right? Looney Tunes all the way. And just like I really do. I can't express enough. Just I know some of the risks for some of you it takes to be publicly in support of this campaign. I know some of the time you take it away from families and other things that you have to be present. I know some of the intimate pain that you're bringing to this work. Shout out to the Clark family who is here, and just wanting to recognize, right? Like we're not coming to this in some sort of academic or abstract way. We're coming to this as real people who are trying to make changes in our community, or trying to, as Chinua Rhodes often says, be the school board member that he wished he had when he was going, right? We're trying to be the people that we wanted to have and build a better world. And so I really am grateful for that. I'm grateful that we get to do the next 24 days together, and then we get to win together, and then we get to govern together. And it really is a privilege for you to stand with me. And because we are running for mayor, it's a privilege to have you in this.
Can we all stand and give it up for our next mayor, Dr. Flo? Don't go anywhere.
This is a great time for donations to be pressed on right now.
So, for sake of time, we're going to take a couple questions. It's about two. While you guys are thinking about your questions again, we definitely want to encourage you to turn around and scan that code so that you're registered. This is a fundraiser, so we're asking that you give as well. And shout out to Cafe Shiva for hosting today. All right, so we want to take just a couple questions before we move into the next part of this. So, does anybody have any? Yes, brother.
Well, I know that you have to deal with a lot of people online that are taking you out of context. They're deliberately cherry picking past quotes and trying to stir up reasons why, especially on the issue of the homeless, and you're familiar with that quote and how they'll take the first two sentences of what you said and ignore the rest of the paragraph. Can you let everybody in the audience understand what your true intentions were with that, because there's a lot of people out there that I personally believe are being driven by the opponent to come onto your social media space and try to make it seem as if you misrepresented yourself. And I just want you to make sure everybody in the room knows crystal clear where you stand on. Because I spend a lot of time.
Listen, if you ever on my media page and you see William Major, that is this brother right here. And he is doing the Lord's work.
I am honored. It is my privilege.
It really is. I like I said, you are doing such amazing work. I am so grateful. I'm like, well, William already handled that one, so I'm moving on. So for the last year and a half, I've been talking about the fact that not here cannot be our homelessness plan. We cannot just like, you can't be here. We have to answer the fundamental question of where can people go who are in spaces they can't stay permanently. And so I've talked about how every single empty lot in the city of Sacramento, priority on those ones that are city owned, but not just them. We should be looking at all of them to see, can we rent? Can we get, like, what can we do to be able to have what Portland has called safe rest villages? And these are places where people are able to come, where they can stay. They don't have to leave at 6 a.m. and wander the streets until they come back in the evening. They can come, they can stay. They are low barrier entry points. They can be, designed for different communities. So, some of them may house, in particular, families with kids. Some may house, people who have pets. Like, you can do it in whatever way you'd like. But the bottom line is that when you have somebody who's in a space where they can't stay, you have a place to be able to offer them where they can charge their cell phone, where they can stay for a while, where they can get enrolled in the homelessness management information system, and we can find out, do you have documents? Do you have an ID? Do you have the things you need? Where they can take showers and, and wash clothes and be human. Right. And so the idea was, let's look at every empty lot, because now we're knocking doors. And we're now at almost 50,000 doors. And every single person is like, this is my number one issue. We need an answer. And the question becomes, right, where can people go if you can't be here? And I'm saying this, I've woken up with somebody in my backyard. I've woken up with somebody on my front porch. I've come outside to somebody who passed out in front of my house because it was 100 degrees in October and they were wearing a sweatshirt. Right. So this is all in the last 2.5 months. Wow. So I'm saying, like, this is not a problem. This is not a challenge that I'm not personally affected by. I'm saying we have to have an answer, and not here isn't it. Because if all we do is sweep people around, they go from house to house, and we're just spending money sweeping people that we could have spent actually helping them get housing and connection to services. And so we need to, because it takes a little while. And if I have to say, hey, you're on the top of the list, like, you know how many people we get to the top of the housing list for and we can't find them anymore? Like, it's not efficient to do things that way. So I said every empty lot, every vacant parcel. And so we were at a forum in February, and people were talking about, like, what kind of vacant lots are in existence that could be examined that maybe haven't been examined before. And I said we should look at the underutilized parks, because they are on the parks list, but they're not being used. These are vacant lots sitting on the parks list. Instead of that being the accurate quote that gets passed along, it's, Flo wants to move, and this is like the really nasty part of it. Flo wants drug addicts to be shooting up drugs while your kids are going down the slide in McKinley Park and in Tahoe Park. First of all, what about McKinley and Tahoe is underutilized? So you should start out, right? And then secondly, like, that's not what I said. And so then they're like, well, show us the list. And I'm like, it's literally on the website. They say coming soon. Drive by, it's an empty lot. Like, this is not rocket science. And they're like, well, tell me which one. And I'm like, it's not one. This is a type of lot that I want us to have a conversation about, because we often do this. We go into communities and we come with that fake town hall meeting. You all know what it is. The decisions are made behind closed doors. Here comes the town hall meeting. And now we all get to yell and say we don't like it. And they're like, and they do it anyway. And that's it, right? And so I'm saying, I'm not coming in making people feel like, this is a done deal. I'm saying, here's the type of thing we should examine. Let's sit down with our city staff and figure out how much is it going to cost. What's already available? Which one of these already have hookups to electricity and water? Because they should be our first option, because that means that we're already there. And what I was also thinking was, if the plan is one day for this to be a park, and now we have homelessness dollars where we're going to be doing bathrooms and other things, now we already have the bathroom for when we get people into permanent housing for your park. So that's one less expense. So let's not spend money on a temporary thing when we could actually put money towards a permanent thing. But that's not the story that's going to be told about me. It's that I'm too extreme for Sacramento because I want to move encampments into every single park and have drug. I mean, that's literally the way that they're describing it. Everybody's just going to be doing drugs by your kids. And my opponent is saying, and even though he knows that's not what I said because he was there. I think he was. But he was there. Even though I've clarified when he's asked about it, he continues to perpetuate this lie and say that's not what I said. I'm grateful to the trolls who put the video out, at least on Twitter, because I'm like, great, now you can hear what I said yourself instead of people lying about it because it's right there in the video. But it's unfortunate and it's kind of like sad and a little bit funny because it's like you've been in office for 20 years and in order to have to beat me, you have to. Like, it just shows you don't have anything good to offer because he's not out here using his time at the door to talk about his vision for Sacramento and how much better things are going to be with me. His tactic is to try to convince people that I'm scary so that they will default to choosing him.
Yes.
And that says a lot about what you have to offer. Because when I'm at the door, I don't bring him up at all.
That's right.
The only time I bring him up is when people say, who is the running again? And I'm like,
That's my mayor. That's my mayor. Another question? Oh, yes.
I have a question for you. So, for me, I know you're a policy writer. It's all about a policy. So when you get into the office, are you going to fight for policy, especially for our youth, for our small businesses, especially our Black small businesses is not being funded and we don't have any money coming in? Also, the mother who's been affected by police violence, community violence, and we have no policy right now except reparation. Also, reparation. There is already 20 policies being written by Chris, Dr. Chris, who's been fighting for reparation. But what is the policy for you if you go to when you become a mayor? Which policy are you going to fight for our community?
yeah, that's a great question, Dion. And so let's start with it's policy, systems, and environmental change. And so we need to be doing all of them. And so being really candid with a $1.7 billion budget, $700 million of which is general fund, and a lot of that is tied up in contracts, the city's main power source may not be funding. But there are some other ways that we can help out, that we can get out of the way so that businesses can get started up. I have been joking. I have a time where I do enjoy Domino's pizza. Don't judge me. There's better pizza in Sacramento. I promise you there's better pizza in Sacramento. I'm just saying. Every now and again, Domino's hits. So when you order Domino's on the app, they're like, your order has been accepted. Your order is preparing to go in the oven. Your order is in the oven. John just took it out of the oven. Thomas about to pick your order up. Like, you get a step-by-step process for your pizza. But if you apply for a business permit for the city of Sacramento, cricket. You put it into a black hole and hope you hear back from someone. 4 days, 4 weeks, 4 months later. And so my question is, can we actually take policy and say, this is the time frame it's going to take. If you submit, you should hear back from the city in this time frame, and you get to see where things are over time. We did this when I was on the board for Girl Scouts. So that when people were signing up for new troops, when people were coming in and saying, hey, we want to be new volunteers or start things, that we were able to say, how long after that person reached out to us were we able to get a response back to them and make sure they moved through the process to the end? Where were we getting stuck because someone went on vacation and didn't pass it over, and how do we fix those places? And so that's one of the things I want the city of Sacramento to do, is things like that. How do we make it so that your business isn't sitting there with an open loan, waiting 3 months to hear back from the city because, oops, we forgot to follow up? And that's not functional. How do we make it so that, I've talked a lot about the dollars that we're spending from the city are prioritizing, bending with, and giving money back to folks throughout the city of Sacramento, so we can have a multiplier effect. So that when we spend $20 million a year supplementing Golden One Arena, that there's at least one Black business inside.
Yeah, talk to me. Yeah.
So that when we spend the money, like when we spend the money on the arena, that yes, you can buy beer from all over, but like there's a priority on buying the ones from Sacramento, because Sacramentans are the ones who are supplementing that arena. That's right. Not folks from the region. Like when people are like local beers, and there's 6 of them from Sacramento, and the rest of them are from around the region. I'm like, I don't recall Folsom paying for that arena. Sacramento residents are. So if we're going to reinvest those dollars, priority top billing should go to businesses within the city of Sacramento, who, when we spend with them, are now giving tax revenue back to the city to help recoup some of the dollars we put into the arena. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I also want us to think about, because it's not always about how do we give out money. It's also how do we seed an environment where your business can grow and thrive.
That's right.
How are we making sure that these vacant storefronts that we have all around town that make it feel like a ghost town, can we put some artists in there and at least do a temporary pop-up so that it's sort of like staging your house, right? When you're selling a house, you don't want it to have all your family pictures because people come in and go, this is your house. But if it's also empty, people are like, I don't know if I can envision it. So you stage it with some things that could be, so people can, it's generic enough that people can then imagine themselves.
I wish I had some church folk.
So let's use that as an opportunity to benefit those artists and get people moving down the space. Right? Like, there are so many things that we can do creatively to take advantage of what's special about Sacramento. We have great artists here. We have fantastic musicians. Shout out to my favorite local band, the Magical Rock Band, right in the back. The parents of them are here. Y'all should listen. They're on our campaign playlist. But like, we have people
Great food here.
who can do things, right? We have delicious food. We have all kinds of stuff. Why aren't we taking advantage and making Sacramento a cool place with lots of fantastic events that people can benefit from? In addition to following up on our reparations package, and Chris asked earlier, and I will say it here, yes and yes, I am supportive of our municipal reparations package. I'm supportive of the Racial Equity Committee, Council, and Alliance, and pulling everything together to be able to come up with a plan. I'm talking to Bolton Rancheria right now about how do we move beyond land acknowledgements to actually doing right by the indigenous folks who are still here. Like, there's some work we can do here in Sacramento to be better. And I think some of it is not necessarily spending. Some of it is connections. Some of it is priority, and some of it is partnerships. And that's why my other commitment is that in my office, I'm going to have someone whose sole job is to focus on partnerships. Make sure that if you're in South Sac doing something and there's somebody in North Sac, that y'all know each other, you can figure out, are there some things you can share? Right? Like, the city's not going to be able to fund everything, but we can certainly go to our foundation partners and say, here's what we did fund. Can you please not sponsor this nonprofit Hunger Games and actually encourage a collaborative plan so people can work together?
She cooking, y'all. Y'all don't know what cooking looks like. She's cooking right now.
So my commitment to you is yes, but it's not going to look like this is not your granddaddy's grant. We're now at a place where we got to start talking about complex systems, how they work together, collaboration, and where the gaps are, and making sure that we are doing this in partnership. And our failure has been a very, again, tethered to reality model of, I have to come in and do it alone.
Yeah.
And that's not public health, and that's definitely not Black women.
Okay. Yeah.
I really appreciate these words and like kind of speaking to that point around things being tethered. Even the strongest policies and even the strongest structures are ultimately tethered to the culture which underlies it, which runs right now in the city. Speaking for myself, I think there's a profound problem with a city management system that ultimately looks at prioritizing business developers and profit over the basic well-being and rights of our community, particularly Black and Brown communities.
Yeah.
And you can see even right now with the decision that's coming up on Tuesday at the beginning of the city council meeting, where we have business developers and even the police officer association lobby support unelected city managers to continue this contract. And that speaks that's just one prime example of the culture which we're dealing with. So I'm curious to know how are you looking to change culture within the city government?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that we have to change in city government is the way things have been done. And part of it starts with, setting priorities and setting goals. Our city has none, right? So, when I first joined the Measure U Community Advisory Committee as the chair, I was like, okay, I got to read through this 400-page budget and figure out what's going on. And shout out to LaShawn, wherever she went. Because I was like, is anybody an expert at municipal budgets? And LaShawn is like, what do you need? Because she loves me. Don't let her tell you anything.
Yeah.
And so she helped me like kind of just think through some things. And so then I sat down with our assistant city manager, Lenny Milstein, and I said, okay, talk me through what are the city's like priorities? Because I want to figure out how Measure U fits in. We're a third of the general fund. I need to know what you're already trying to do so I can figure out how we can run this committee and what priorities and recommendations we should come up with. And she laughed in my face very respectfully and said, well, we don't have any priorities. She said, council made a plan, years ago. So on page 34, she pulled out her printed budget and said, here's the process they said they would go through to set priorities. And then she turned the page and said, they've never done it, so it just skips to the next section. And so I was like, okay, well, step number one is, council, can you use the process that you outlined years ago and actually set some priorities? Still hasn't been done, right? So we were trying to be helpful on Measure U and say, it seems like you paid management partners a couple $100,000 for these recommendations to help us save money and avoid the deficit that everybody knows is coming in 2024. Do you want to start with these 6 recommendations? Start there, like, have at it, but we just picked these 6. No answer, right? So it was like the frustration of seeing these things happen over and over again. And so it starts with, and I say to people all the time, the 2 things I want to do in the first 100 days, I think can really help to set us up for success. In addition to hiring folks to come in and be a part of my team, the big things I want to do are, number 1, get the council together and set some 2-year priorities. That's when the next election is. And for the next 2 years, our staff should be able to take a long breath of relief and know that we have decided what we want to do. And they now can build a budget in response to what we've said is important. They can figure out how much money we need. And the all-important thing that never gets asked, which is, how can all of you help? Because right now, I don't know if the city's trying to house 3 people, 300 or 3,000, because they ain't got no goals.
Right. Yeah.
So money's coming in for homelessness, and we're just kind of, divvying it out. But there's no master plan of what we should be funding and how it should go towards something. So that helps us get there, right? The other thing I want to do is change how we make these decisions. Because I know the people in this room. A bunch of y'all have been to city council meetings trying to argue 2 minutes at a time against something you found out about on Thursday when the agenda was posted. Something that's been cooked up for the last 8 months, but you didn't know about it because you weren't in the room, right? And so
They're going to check us out of here.
That's not the way we do. Like, we have an even better system, minus appropriations, at the state level, where you introduce legislation, and then it goes to a committee, and you know what's coming, and you know what amendments are on the table, and you know who's supporting it and who's opposed and why, and you have an opportunity to have a conversation. We don't have that here because we keep everything hidden until 5 days before, which is the minimum required. It's not the way it has to be done. So part of what I want to do is say, mayor, council, and department chairs, what are you trying to do for the next 6 months? We can do this twice a year. What are you trying to do for the next 6 months? Put it out on the table. Let's organize it by topic. And let's let those committee members, the commissions and people who volunteer their time month after month to come and be our advisors, let's let them be our first committee. We don't have to do it ourselves. Let them talk about it. Let community members come and say, we like this, we don't like this, we're in support. And then that all goes into the staff report for when we finally get to decide. And we can organize the meeting by topic. So if you're a parks junkie, we're going to talk about 6 parks proposals on Thursday, September 4th. Come on out. Oh, you're a public safety person? Great. We're doing the public safety budget and policy talks on April 4th. Come on out. Like, there is a way to do this that makes it so people can be more engaged and we can be more thoughtful. And we also can benefit from everyone's collective wisdom. And so those are the culture pieces that I want to change. And then I think from there, that's the lever on the lever, right? When you want to move a big ship, you can't just turn it because there's too much energy. You got to turn the small lever to turn the big lever to turn the whole thing. And so I think those are the small levers that can open up a world of possibility and option. And the fact that we're going to be out knocking doors and having 91, 92, and 93 house parties, right? And doing the things that we did to win this election to keep people engaged and involved. My commitment and promise to you is that it's not going to be just 4 years from now when we have to go up for re-election that we come back out and do this again. We're going to be out talking to communities, having conversations, showing up in our churches and in our community centers and doing this work because this is governance. This is what your local government should look like. The fact that people are like, you're so accessible, we all live here. I'm not Kamala who lives, in DC. I live here. I go get coffee. I grocery shop. We live here. You should see me. We should be accessible. We should be able to do things together. That's the benefit and beauty of local government. So that's what we plan to continue.
Can I just point out there's only one candidate running that has a vision and a plan. There's a question in the back. Was it?
All right, look.
So my next question is, you talked about like the corporations, about asking about like how they want you to like, sell out. Can you expand on that a little bit? About the corporations?
Tell us a story.
So when we first started the campaign started, shout out to Black Women Therapists, because I made a very flippant comment at the end of one of my sessions, like, this is the same reason why people want me to run for mayor, and I'm not doing that. And she was like, I'm making note, we'll talk about that next time. And I was like, this is why we shouldn't have taught you to read. So I was like, okay, here we go, right? Like, we're gonna have this conversation. And so we did. And then when I sat down, she gave me homework after that session, and she said, sit down and write out, like, what are your hopes and dreams for Sacramento? And I sat down and I for an hour and a half, and I looked up and I had 16 pages of notes about the things that I wish were different and what my values were and what I would want this to look like, both as a campaign and also as a city. And so part of what I wrote down was not, who I didn't want to take money from, and Bobby was on probably one of those early documents as well, who I didn't want to take money from and why. And so then we started running the campaign, and I'm just very clear, this is what we do. And so, next thing I know, the Metro Chamber reaches out and they're like, hey, we're doing our endorsement, and, will you come? And I said, well, I'm not, asking for your money, but I'm happy to sit down and talk, right? Because I'm like, I want to at least take the opportunity, take the time you're offering to say I'm not a big scary monster. So we sit down, and they want to spend half of the time badgering me about why I won't take your money. Well, why won't you take, who will you take money from? So what you're saying is, so what are you trying to say about, well, I live in this community too, why won't you take our money? And I was like, why does this matter so much to you, right? And then I was like, and so the next time I came and sat down with them, I said, I'm really confused, because you are the one saying that you are an unbridled capitalist, and I'm giving you for free what you're used to paying for, which is access, right? That's all this is supposed to be. You claim it's not quid pro quo, that would be illegal. But all you want to do is have access. And every time you call, I answer. I sit down, I tell you the truth, I tell you where I am on things. I don't understand what the problem is. It seems to me like this is a capitalist dream. You get something for nothing. And yet you are highly bothered by this, and they cannot get over it. I mean, really are struggling with the notion that somebody will not take your money. And so, so that's part of what went into this. It was like, wow, how interesting it is that when you don't take people's money, they're very upset about it, right? And what does it mean, right? And what does it mean? And so then the questions come in about, well, how do you feel about certain policies? And I'm like, well, here's how I feel. And they're like, we feel differently. And I'm sure you do. And I'm like, and so I'm trying to give them my, my optimistic best sell. Like, you want to think about that a little bit differently, right? Like, you're talking about your profit, but like, if the city descends into, chaos and that, like, you're probably not gonna make too much on that, property you're holding, right? Like, just really trying to like get down to brass tacks and like, yeah, you won't take our money. so there's a there, right? And you only get to scratch it when somebody says, I'm not gonna take it.
That's good. That's great. We have one more question.
William Major, this is my number one troll. Get her. Okay.
So it's good there. Big business money. Like, big business function in the city.
Right.
What's some of the prices that you usually evaluate proposal from? Big business organization making proposal to the city to invest. What things you usually evaluate those proposals? That's a great question, Bobby. So part of what we look at is, what are you proposing? What do we get for it? And what are the costs, right? And so and that's what I said to them. And I was like, look, if I don't take your money, I'm in a much better position when I like your idea to not have people looking over my shoulder wondering why. Like, maybe it's just a good idea and I'm willing to work with you on it. But if I take your money because this is what everybody does, people are like, that doesn't sound right. So part of it for me is I now have the freedom to sit down with anybody and say, hey, the police department, I've been talking LAPD up.
Right.
I'm the first Black progressive in 60 years. They're like, we should do an LAPD suggestion, right? I'm like, if you have a good idea, let's go, right? And so, and I can do that without there being any question of why I'm doing it. No one has asked in this entire campaign. Well, I don't know. Maybe she's having some because she's out here saying LAPD's 28 call list is a good one. I'm like, yeah, because it's actually a good idea. They came out with a call list last March that said here are calls, and quite literally, Craig Lally, I don't know who he is, but I would love to meet this man and shake his hand. He said police officers are sent on too many calls that are much better suited for unarmed people. And then he went on to say this would free up our time to actually solve cases and respond to violent crime, and it would improve officer morale. I don't know how you could get a better public health statement about why we need to do something different than that. And it came from LAPD's, police union. So I'm like, I'm not gonna like leave a good idea behind. We should do what LAPD proposed, please. Like, so that's how I feel about the business community. If you have a good idea for something we should do here, let's go. But what I'm not going to do is sell out the people who are here, who are going to be harmed by the decision because you want it. And I want the freedom to be able to say yes and also to say no. Because as I said earlier today, my ancestors' wildest dreams is not to be bought and sold.
Can we give it up one more time for our 50 man, Dr. Flo?
Real quick. Why, before anybody gets up, why should we vote? Why should we vote? Why should we vote for it? All this good. Why? Why not keep the status quo? Because we used to the status quo. We know what we're going to get from the status quo.
It's the same old.
Why vote for Flo? We need to know why so we can keep giving the whys to others. Why?
Heard why 80 times, but you can answer it again.
Because our challenges actually have solutions. Because we deserve to be a part of the city that we love and that we have talent and opportunity to be a part of. Because this is the most diverse city in the country. And when I look around in my campaign events, they look like the city. And actually, a former council member said that to me. He was like, I went to everybody's election night, and yours is the one that looked most like Sacramento. And I appreciate that because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build with people who are here who want to be able to live in community with one another and want to be able to have nice things. We want to listen to good ideas, and we want to also make sure that we don't ever forget that it should always be people over profit. Right? And that's it. That doesn't mean we don't make profit. It just means that we don't make them at the expense of our people. And that we make decisions that are for the betterment and for the good of our society. That we are collaborating with one another and remembering that we're human beings and that it's okay for our government to talk about the love we should have for one another. We're people. And so, yeah, we're people. And the trust is, this sounds like an internet scam if you were really to sit down. The job is to beg everybody you know to give you money for a year and a half while doing the job where you raise money and you're the only person who doesn't get paid. And then the job that you get in the end is an underpaid job where everybody goes at you and blames you for all the problems in the city. If I told you to sign up for that and didn't tell you it was elected office, you'd be like, this is an internet scam. I would absolutely not do that, right? So the reason you can trust me is because I'm not in it for the riches.
Right.
I'm unemployed right now. I'm not making it easy on myself by saying I don't take corporate money. I'm losing money on the endeavor. I could have done it very different.
All right. We're gonna transition. Thank you, Dr. Flo, for your time. After Ryan Clinton comes forward and leads us a little bit further.
So real quick, before we depart, I got some things I want to share, but I also want to do something that's pretty dope. Y'all probably seen concerts and shows where the person on the stage gets a whole child shot of a selfie. I want to do that for Dr. Flo. Can we do that?
And then I want all the brothers. You all gonna line up behind Flo, right? Yep. Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Three. Hold on. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Hey. All right. Go ahead. Nobody leave. Nobody leave. Hold up. One more thing, y'all. Nobody leave. A couple more things. Nobody leave. So before folks pull off. Nobody leave. Hold up, y'all. I'm gonna get y'all there quick, I promise, but I want y'all to make sure that we do this, that we close this out right. So look, we heard from our teacher man. We heard from our teacher man tonight. Right? We know who she is, we know what she's running on, but now it's time for the action. This is where we show how we really show up. So I want to give you one update first. This is a fundraiser. We got a goal tonight. Can we reach $5,000 tonight by the end of this event? We hit that. Woo! And hear my brother Barry, he ain't done yet. We need more. Right? So look, so here's what we're asking for, right? No, brother Dan, everybody. So check it out real quick, y'all. One mic, let me hear y'all real quick. Hold up. Get your attention one more time, y'all. So look, so please, all around you are QR codes. Please scan those QR codes if you want to continue to give. Take a picture of that flyer. Because the three things we're looking for are MTV, our money, our time, and our votes. Our money, our time, and our votes.
MTV.
Money, time, vote. No, you know I think, right? So check it out. Here's what it looks like. Use that QR code once to donate yourself, but send it to 3 or 4 people. We're going to call you and say, who am I voting for in this election? You know I'm going to follow this. I know you do. Right? We all get that person, that call, that text message. Who am I going to vote for? Send them that donation link and tell them about Flo. Tell them what you heard. Tell them that why that you have that here from everybody to walk away with. Right? That's the money part. Our time. We got 24 days left? 24 days left. Can you sign up for canvassing, phone banking? Don't. Some of us got young people who looking real thirsty to do something. Right? Can we see if they want to come out and canvass with us? Right? Let's do it with them. Don't send our young folks out not to do this alone. Let's walk with them and show how important it is to all of us, right? Because all of us are going to get her in the office, right? If we can't do that, send it out to another location where we can do another fundraising event. A house party is what we're calling them, right? This was organized in what, 3 weeks? 4 weeks? Not 4 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Excuse me. This event was organized in 2 weeks by 4 brothers. Now I know y'all know 3 or 4 people that you can do the same thing with, right? And you see the impact that we have. And the last most important thing, our vote. Look, I know we're gonna vote, right? We gotta make sure somebody we know also votes. We gotta make sure that young person who isn't registered also votes. That older person who isn't registered also votes. Everybody who says, I don't care about the national politics, understands it's called local politics. Make sure we vote. So our MTV, what are we doing? Oh, there it is.
Also, quick thing, Measure E, vote yes, City of Sacramento. If we don't vote yes on it, our libraries will only be open 3 days a week. It's not a new tax. It just keeps the libraries open 5 days a week. So no new money, libraries open.
Yeah.
So please make sure everybody votes yes on Measure E.
Yes, on Measure E. Hold on. Let me get the brothers.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, somebody take a picture.
Right.
Dr Flo.
Bro. Okay, mix it up. Thank you for again staying for letting folks space. Let's give a shout out to my daughter Gage.
Yes.
Y'all need catering, y'all need event planning. She's the girl to talk to. But what I need, see my brother Keon came in. I know Brother got a marriage about to happen. You know, brother's like got a lot of stuff, but he still saying, I'm gonna tap in. I need all my brothers. We're gonna hold up the signs because we want to show who is in front of us and who we backing up. So I'm gonna get all my brothers over here.
Yeah, we want to take a powerful picture, but I also want everybody to grab a lawn sign and put it in your lawn so your neighbors know and have a conversation.
Let's go get it. We're gonna get the close picture with the brothers first.
And Dr. Porter is having souls to the world tomorrow.
Hold on, we're gonna come back. We're gonna come back.
Somebody might not come back. I know my people. Souls to the world.
I love it.